But today we're going to turn our attention to the Ukraine war. What is going on there? What's the latest fallout? And to do so, we're going to focus in on the matter of what's happening to the Ukrainian Orthodox Church over there. There's a story in Politico, the end of days for Russia's church in Ukraine, they call it. This story says President Vladimir Putin's decision to invade Ukraine has triggered many unintended consequences. And now to the list can be added the wrecking of the Moscow-tied Ukrainian Orthodox Church, once a useful Kremlin tool of influence. The Ukrainian authorities are considering banning the church, and draft legislation has already been prepared by opposition parties to do just that. Zelensky is expected to make an announcement soon about the future of the church. This was a week ago, and now we're joined by a friend of the program, Viktor, who returns to give us his thoughts as someone who was born in Ukraine and now is an American citizen. How you doing, sir?
Good.
So, Viktor, tell us what's the latest on what's going on with the Orthodox Church in Ukraine?
Well, as I watch an update, thanks God, the chairman of the Ukrainian parliament said it's not the right time to forbid the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, which is considered by the Orthodox world as a only canonical Ukrainian church. And it was on a table for a while since December when they started terror against the church. They tried to evict Lavra monks. Lavra is the biggest monastery in the whole Russia, that is situated in the on the banks of Dnipro River in Kiev, where I grew up. They still try to evict them. And what they say is that Lavra is part of government property.
Tell us about
Mhm.
that.
Well,
Lavra.
Kievo-Pecherskaya Lavra is the heart of Russian Orthodoxy, Ukrainian Orthodoxy, Belarusian Orthodoxy. That's where Russia started, so to speak, where St. Vladimir baptized Holy Russia back in 988. It was always the center of spiritual life in the whole Russia, when Russia was, Orthodox Empire before Bolshevik Revolution, and they had a strike at the heart of the Orthodoxy. And that's where the heart of the Orthodoxy is, Kievo-Pecherskaya Lavra. There is another center, it's called Pochayev Lavra, okay, which is situated in Western Ukraine. For 150 years, it was captivated by Ukrainian Catholics, Greek Catholics, but that was an Orthodox stronghold for thousands of years, okay? If I'm not mistaken, that was Lavra was for 1,000 years. The Pochayev Lavra was a stronghold for, I believe, 700 or 600 years, founded by Saint Job of Pochayev. Those are Ukrainian holy places, dear to every Ukrainian heart. I will address just the Ukraine right now. The biggest church, canonical church, that can count over 8 million people, baptized Orthodox Christians, and is called the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, was called the Kievan Metropolia. Now, what happened, the politics got involved quite recently, and they had part of the schismatic Orthodox group that was called Autocephalous Ukrainian Orthodox Church and Kiev Patriarchate that were not recognized by any church, including Patriarch of Constantinople. all of a sudden we see Bartholomew, the Patriarch of Constantinople, recognizes schismatic churches against all logic, against all his previous statements. He gives Thomas, or the document of church independence. Okay, it's called Tomos. So, in my opinion, it's a purely political act. But politics will not bring into the church the Spirit of God. It's just politics. This is a tool to divide the Ukrainian people. It's the tool to destroy the true Orthodoxy, and a tool to destroy, in particular, the Russian Orthodoxy. Okay? So, what we have now, we have a persecution, severe persecution of the canonical Ukrainian Orthodox Church. What is the whole situation? How would I describe it? Since December, we have state that started lawlessness, started terror, started intimidation towards Ukrainian Orthodox clergy. Dozens of churches were captivated, were
confiscated
by real bandits, real gangs that have nothing to do with church, have nothing to do with orthodoxy. You see pictures of violence, pictures of, let's say, Ivano-Frankivsk. If you see, there is a video there, and you see about a couple hundred people. They break in during the during Holy Liturgy in the central cathedral Ivano-Frankivsk. It's a city in the very western Ukraine, okay? And these people shout nationalistic slogans, anti-Russian slogans, and just beat the believers up. Where is police? Where is the law? And it's happening all over the Ukraine. Intimidation, violence, lawlessness. And as I watch state TV, there is a propaganda that is filled with lie, is filled with the program to destroy, to liquidate the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, which they call is spy for Russian government. How can you say that all these believers simply, they're mostly are not getting involved with politics at all? People who are praying, simple people who come to pray to God, monks, nuns, hierarchy, they all made spies. They all made traitors of the Ukraine. This is horrible. I wonder what's going on. And I believe it's not just political issue. This is a spiritual issue to divide Russian people, divide Ukrainians, Russians, and Belarusians, to split them, to make them into their agenda. What is this agenda? To make a Ukraine anti-Russia, which is, I believe, comes from somewhere else. Any more questions, David?
Let's talk about what's going on with the monks and the metropolitan that was arrested. It was circulated online, the video of him being arrested. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. The metropolitan, the head of the Kievo-Pecherska Lavra, Vladika Pavel, was arrested. And there were 2 counts that they charged against him. First, they supposedly overheard his conversations over the phone. And first was a collaboration. The second was that he was a traitor of the Ukrainian state. So just a phone conversation supposedly happened in the beginning of invasion in March, without any court decision, without any proof, supposedly his voice, and you know that the audio recordings can be, well, they can be just made up, So what I think that without any proof, any court decision, you cannot arrest anybody. So he's under arrest, yes. He's under arrest, under supervision of the police 24/7. The reason why he was arrested, because that was a part of plan to evict the monks. The head of the monks is arrested. There was an activist, a woman called, I believe her name, Svetlana. She was arrested too.
Mm-hmm.
She was arrested too. So that's the plan, to destroy the church and to get rid of the monks from this ancient Ukrainian holy place. All of a sudden, 10 months after the war, they started this agenda to destroy the whole church. Why? Why they started this? And I believe this is part of evil agenda that is given from somewhere else, that is imposed upon Ukrainian people. So this man is under house arrest right now. Vladika Pavel Lebed, his name is. Okay, thanks God he is giving speeches. We can hear him on the video. Here's the thing. The Ukraine supposedly goes into European Union, and they try to be European, so to speak. So supposedly court is involved. Supposedly some juridical process is involved here. So they don't want to look like, some state of North Korea or Nazi Germany. But in fact, it's all that is going on is full lawlessness. So when you read the Western news, you get an idea that basically Ukrainian government is trying to fight with the Russian government by persecuting this church. This is crazy. They're fighting Orthodox faith, because Ukrainian Orthodox Church, from the first day of the invasion, said we are against invasion and we stand up with the Ukrainian people. And many members of the Ukrainian church are fighting in the ranks of the Ukrainian army. But that doesn't help. Okay? No, they monks stand with Ukrainian flags. That doesn't help. They're going to get them anyway. So there is a agenda here to destroy orthodoxy. That's what I see. So some priests are drafted into having kids, drafted into Ukrainian army. They're drafted into fighting with Russia. So they want to get rid of them by doing this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Many, many horrible things are happening to the believers who stand up for their church. As a matter of fact, in Lavras were 5 people arrested. That lady, Svetlana, as I said, right? The Metropolitan Pavel, seminarian, I believe one monk, and a couple others. So if you stand up against, you are the subject of persecution. They will spy on you. They will eavesdrop on you. They will search you. Let's say what happened in December. The massive searches of the monasteries. They had cases that were 100% fabricated by Ukrainian secret service. One priest that was supposed to become a bishop was made gay without any proofs. There's no proof. No court, no jurors, nothing. And they all say, we do this because of war. We try to protect Ukraine from Russian influence by persecuting the church. In fact, they split Ukraine. In fact, they fight Ukraine itself by persecuting the church. You understand what I'm saying, David?
So, is it true though that the media in the West says that the church is basically Russian propaganda disguised as sermons and religious teachings?
No, that's false. That's absolute lie. Maybe in few cases, but what is Russian propaganda? To say that Saint Vladimir baptized Rus, it was a source of Russia, that's a historical fact. That's not propaganda. That's a historical truth. Okay? Yeah. Saint Vladimir was always recognized in Russia, in Ukraine, in Belarus, as a baptizer of the Holy Russia, which state was called Rus, Kievan Rus. Mm-hmm. So what we have here is basically misunderstanding of history. It's not propaganda. When I say that Ukrainian and Russian language are so close, is that Russian propaganda? And that's a fact. The Russian people can understand Ukrainians without even learning their language. The languages are so close. Why? Why do you have mixed families? Is that a propaganda? We have to find out what propaganda is. Church never was against Ukraine's sovereignty, especially before coup d'etat, you know. But church was always for a real Ukraine. Ukraine with two languages. Half of the Ukrainian people, I'm talking about ethnic Ukrainians who spoke Russian. Why we should fight our own people? Russian language is part of the Ukrainian identity too. And that's what Ukrainian nationalists, they hate. Anything Russian has to be destroyed, has to be removed as a curse. Russia is eternal enemy, they say. So this ideology is not Ukrainian. This ideology reminds me something that was happening in Germany in the 30s. Don't you think, David?
Yeah, it's disturbing how evil the propaganda in the West is in terms of not even trying to learn from the lessons of past mistakes from the warmongers.
Absolutely.
Lied us into Iraq, lied us into Libya, lied us into Kosovo. Remember that? Lied us into what we did over there in Yugoslavia. Lied us into the Iraq War I. Lied us into Syria, into Afghanistan, into the Arab Spring that was a catastrophe for ethnic minorities, including ancient churches in the areas like Egypt and other places. It continues to just lie in one uniform voice most of the time until things get so ugly that they have to catch up to reality and admit that.
You know what I remember when Russian government started persecuting Jehovah's Witnesses? It happened like 3 years ago, remember?
Yeah.
They were forbidden, they were persecuted. And I was against it. I'm for religious freedom, Dave. Protestant, Jehovah's Witnesses, Muslims, Jews should worship freely. That's a God-given right. I suppose you agree with me, right, on this? When we have persecution of the canonical church recognized by the whole Orthodox world, including the Bishop of Constantinople, the Patriarch of Constantinople, without, canonical ties, however, it's recognized by the whole Orthodox, I'm talking about 16 worldwide churches, is persecuted. The monks are evicted, monasteries are taken away, churches are taken away, priests are beaten up, simple people are beaten up. The West turns blind eye on that. Why? Why? The Metropolitan Onufry, the head of the Ukrainian Canonical Orthodox Church, went to United Nations and made a speech. And I wonder how many Americans know about this. I mean, United Nations, they issued a report about the persecution of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. Thanks God, we have something going on, right? However, I remember the articles and programs about persecution of other religious communities. I'm talking about Jehovah's Witnesses here. It was all over the place in the CNN News, ABC News, Fox News. The only exception was Fox News. I heard Tucker Carl.
Tucker Carlson, yeah.
Tucker Carlson talking about persecution of the Ukrainian Orthodox believers.
That may be one of the reasons why he was fired. You're not supposed to talk about the victims of our foreign policy, especially if they're Christian overseas, you know. That's a taboo subject.
Right. So this is absolutely outrageous, I think. And it's a real persecution. No, that's not persecution that was under Soviet rule. I was persecuted by KGB. That was very severe persecution. The communist persecution was 10,000 times worse, Dave. I was put into mental hospital. I was interrogated by KGB, intimidated, kicked out of university. Thanks God the persecution is not that severe because they are afraid of Western opinion. They pretend that they fight with some foreign influence. No, their plan is to liquidate the church. Thanks God they understood. That was, as I said, a recent statement by the chairman of Ukrainian parliament that it's not the right time to do it because of war. Recent statement. So thanks God it slowed down a little bit. However, as I watch propaganda, Zelensky propaganda, every day, I see the party line, so to speak, is the same: to smear the church, to present it as a purely, Russian organization, which is against Ukrainian identity, against Ukrainian sovereignty, which is basically anti-Ukrainian, which is a lie, because basically many bishops are pro-Ukrainian. I mean, they love their culture, love their country, love their history, and they support the Ukrainian sovereignty. What's happening? And they, even though, as I said, they support Ukraine, they're persecuted. So I believe, here's the thing, that Ukrainian Orthodox Church, in their eyes, should not exist. I remember beginning of 90s, okay? It was time of perestroika. In English, I believe rebuilding, right? The right word.
Yeah.
The democracy, freedom, Mikhail Gorbachev. It was a nice time. It was such a bright time, David. I remember everything what was happening. I was able to immigrate to the U.S. And I remember the meeting. And Russian patriarch came to Kiev. That was a nice time. There was no animosity, no. There was a group of Ukrainian nationalists standing and chanting, "No Russian priests, no Russian derogatory." They use a derogatory term. "Геть Moskovsko Popite" means down with Moscow Pope, priest. So this hatred is imbued in their ideology. Read Bandera, read Donsov, all these ideologies of Ukrainian nationalism. Ukraine from 20s, 30s. Have you read any? David, I'm sorry, Bandera. Have you read the writings of Bandera, by the way?
No,
David?
tell us a little bit about it.
It's real bad. It's real bad.
Bandera is celebrated by the Ukrainian government, isn't he?
As far as I know, yes. There was a pronouncement by former President Yushchenko that his army was heroes, and he's celebrated by his followers. I believe there is such a celebration. He's celebrated as a hero on an official level. This is a shame. Ukraine for Ukrainians. At that time, that rhetoric was very anti-Semitic, anti-Polish, anti-Russian. Now it's different. They have to be civilized. They present themselves as Democrats. However, if you listen to any of their program, it's neo-Nazi ideology. You have to get rid of all Russian. All Russian is bad. There's no good Russians, etc., etc., etc. How would you say that? To say on the official TV such things? You know, what do you think about it? There's no good Russians. It's like saying in Germany, they were saying all Jews are filth. They're trash, bio-trash, right? We're calling them. So with such attitude, you had pogroms, you had remember in Germany in 1938 when they started destroying Jewish business in Nazi Germany, remember? Yeah. Right? From history. And I believe if they had freedom, that would be pretty much the same thing. There's so much hatred. There's so much violence. This is ideology of intolerance. This is ideology of dictatorship. This is ideology of national purity, which is very close to what Hitler taught at one time. You know, and I read Bandera writings, Stepan Bandera writings.
Yeah,
I know what they're all about.
What is his core message for those who've never read or heard? You know, he's popular figure in the Ukrainian government, which our government and UK and the West supports. And they say that they say the Ukrainian government is a shining icon of democracy. And now their favorite hero, they even have a holiday, I believe, celebrating Bandera. Tell me, just give us give us a quick summary of Bandera's book. What does he talk about? What's his philosophy?
Well, it has to be a pure national state, just for Ukrainians. One language, one faith, no other nations. That Ukrainians are superior in this land, Ukrainian land, and they have to govern this land. As I said, it's very close to what Adolf Hitler taught. It's not quite the same, David. As a matter of fact, the Nazis kept him in jail, right, in concentration camp for a while because he was fighting for Ukrainian independence from Nazis. But they were very close. I would say he was a collaborator, with Nazis. His ideology is it's extreme nationalism, I would say. Extreme nationalism. Very selfish, very violent, very anti-Christian, very cruel. Does that explain what's this all about?
Yeah.
If you have to listen to what modern Ukrainian TV says, you listen. It's just they will infuse you with hatred. They will infuse you with hatred towards, let's say, we had monuments of Pushkin, all destroyed, all over Ukraine, destroyed, knocked off. Why? Well, this has to do with the war, because it's part of the Ukrainian history, which was part of Russia. Everything that connected with Russia is evil. has to be eradicated. Okay? Everything connected, Russian Tsar, Russian Church, Russian Empire, all is evil. Ukrainians were suppressed and oppressed by the Russians, by this evil, state. Everything connected with Russia is bad. That's their ideology. By the way, Bandera was an enemy of Poles. And as we know, in Volhynia, 100,000 Poles were exterminated by his army. You know that, right? The crimes of the Ukrainian Bandera army.
Oh, tell us more about it.
Well, the Polish government claims about 200,000 Poles were killed in the Western Ukraine during World War II. They started as a terrorist organization in Poland, killing Polish ministers, and that was organization of Ukrainian nationalists. That later on was called Ukrainian Uprising Army, UPA. Then in 41 was a Jewish pogrom. What do you call pogrom in English? When they exercise violence toward Jews.
Yeah.
Whatever.
We just use the word pogrom. Yeah.
Pogrom, right. And then they started to cleanse the Ukrainian lands from Polish people, children, women, just killing them, a cruel killing. And in Volhynia in 43, in the summer of 43, about 100,000 people, it's all recorded, it's all proven. As a matter of fact, in Poland, Ukrainian or Polish parliament even has a date of sorrow. It's like Holocaust of Polish people at the hands of the Ukrainian nationalists. 100,000. It's only an estimate. What about other parts of Western Ukraine? Thousands of people were evicted, killed, including children. But that's the past. What we have now is the same ideology presented in more civilized manner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you see persecution of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, automatically you think what the Bandera people did back in days of World War II, when they killed Orthodox Metropolitan. You know that happened, right? In Volhynia too. They killed the Orthodox Metropolitan. I forgot his name, but anyway. So that's their nature. So this demonic ideology is at work now. And I don't know why. I don't know why West supports these people. Their ideals and their goals.
What percentage of the government is supportive or interested in the ideology you described there, this ultra-nationalism that has this violent history?
Yes, but the ideals of Western democracy are absolutely different. As far
I'm
as
saying
I
what the media says that the nationalists like Azov Battalion represent just a small little thing. It's not really a big deal.
Absolutely no. Absolutely no. It's all over the place. It's.
Is it fair to say that the ideology of the descendants of Bandera is the animating ideology behind the Ukrainian war for the Ukrainians in terms of the ones carrying out the
absolutely. As a matter of fact, you have a greeting that comes from Bandera movement, glory to Ukraine. That's Bandera greeting, and all the parties, let's say Party Voice, founded by a rock star, Vakarchuk, Ukrainian, they're very nationalist. You know what I'm talking about, right? The party called Voice.
No.
In Ukrainian parliament, or a party by Petro Poroshenko, European Choice Party. They had 25%. They're very nationalist. As a matter of fact, they presented this law to forbid the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. So ideology is permitted. All society is permitted with this ideology. And when I look at the programs of the modern Ukrainian, it's all over the place. Maybe Western people don't understand what's going on. They don't understand Ukrainian. They are fooled. They are being fooled. Because if you look with your clear eyes, objective reason, right? You get horrified. Even if I look like a spectator, independent spectator, right? I'm horrified at what I hear. Hatred, prejudice, incitement for violence. It's a lot of it. I understand there is a war, and people are very, very upset because of that war. People are very upset. And I understand war is many, many dead people, including children. So people are very angry. Okay? However, they don't understand. They didn't start on February 24th, all this. It started 8 years ago, and not by Putin or Russia. Okay? It started in Kiev. So basically, I think it's deception what's going on Western media, everything connected with the Ukraine. It's a big deception.
A big deception.
Yes, because the regime and the government and it's basically neo-Nazi regime. It's kind of hidden, It's very secretive, very canny. It's not like Hitler's regime, where they openly started to, propagate against Jewish people. Because you're a Jew, you're an enemy, right? Now, in Ukraine, it's a different propaganda. Everything connected to Russia is anti-Ukrainian. Even Russian language is called the language of the dogs. And I'm not kidding. How do you like this one?
Yeah.
The language of the dogs. So recently I had a discussion with one fellow. He lives in Poland. And he started talking things. And I said, hey, you call yourself Christian? And you call Russian language the language of the dogs? So this is madness. So I believe that we Christians, we adequate people have, first of all, to acknowledge what's going on, to have a real picture of what's going on, not just propaganda, not just media, to realize what this Zelensky regime is all about. And we have to realize it's against our Western values, period. How
about this? The Atlantic.com, there's a magazine, and Ann Applebaum and Jeffrey Goldberg have a story. Jeffrey is the editor-in-chief of the outlet. The story is the counteroffensive. They say the future of the democratic world will be determined by whether the Ukrainian military can break a stalemate with Russia and drive the country backwards, perhaps even out of Crimea for good. So they're saying it's all full bore in the spring and summer and fall. They say at the end of their piece, Ukrainians are waiting for the counteroffensive. Europeans, East and West, are waiting for the counteroffensive. Central Asians are waiting for the counteroffensive. Belarusians, Venezuelans, Iranians, and others around the world whose dictatorships are propped up by the Russians, they are all waiting for the counteroffensive too. This spring, this summer, this autumn, Ukraine gets a chance to alter geopolitics for a generation and so does the United States. So they want them to go all the way in
Mm-hmm.
for democracy.
So the bulwark of freedom, right? The Zelensky regime is nonsense. It's nonsense. Whoever says this don't understand the essence of what's going on. So against the will of people of Crimea, against the will of people of Donbass, right? How is that possible? Where is democracy? You know, when we talk about Kosovo, okay, the Kosovo people didn't want to be with Serbia. I'm talking about official propaganda, right? Now, this is double standards. And I know for sure that people in the very eastern Ukraine, Donbass, Crimea, right? They don't want to be in Ukraine. Where is free choice? Where is democracy? And I think that idea behind this is totally false, because I see a totally different picture here, Dave. It's got to be agreement. War has to stop. War has to stop. The bloodshed has to stop. We have to agree to disagree. We have to realize that war is evil. We have to realize that Ukraine will survive only as a pluralistic state, bilingual state. But how is that possible with this regime? I don't see way out. It's a tragedy. I see only abyss that Ukraine is falling into. You understand what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. Seymour
One
Hersh.
Ukraine, one language, Russia evil, and that's rhetoric will not bring any good.
Seymour Hersh is one of the greatest journalists alive. He has a Substack with an article called Trading with the Enemy Amid Rampant Corruption in Kiev and as U.S. troops gather at the Ukrainian border. Does the Biden administration have an end game to the conflict? This was published on April 12th, just a couple weeks ago. But in it, he talks about how one of his sources says one estimate by analysts from the Central Intelligence Agency put the embezzled funds for Zelensky and his entourage at $400 million last year, at least. Another expert compared the level of corruption in Kiev as approaching that of the Afghan war. Quote, wait a second, quote, although there will be no professional audit reports emerging from the Ukraine, Zelensky's been buying discount diesel from the Russians, one knowledgeable American intelligence official told me. And who's paying for the gas and oil? We are. Putin and his oligarchs are making millions on it. So he says many government ministries in Kiev have been literally competing to set up front companies for export contracts for weapons and ammunition with private arm dealers around the world. So they don't sound like a country that's run by serious people committed to their people's well-being, do they?
Right. Absolutely.
$400 million kickback is at least from last year alone Zelensky and his buddies have made.
Yeah, I believe the war is means to make money here. I know that Zelensky was a clown. He was a head of some comedy club. Okay, he's not Ukrainian nationalist. By nationality, he's a Jew. Okay, and they're all Russian speaking, all of them. They're puppets. You know. However, what stands behind them is evil. Is real bad. And they present themselves to the West as they're champions of freedom, champions of democracy against Russian tyranny, against Putin. But this is a game. In fact, he's as much as, authoritarian. His rule is he forbade opposition channels way before war started. Are you there, David?
Yes.
All channels, 3 channels, opposition channels were closed. the Ukrainian journalists were persecuted.
What if you speak out at right now? If you're in Kiev and you're a journalist and you want to call for peace, what would happen to you if you're, say, anti-war journalist?
I would be arrested for undermining the Ukrainian military, for collaboration.
So if you quote, so that's why the West is saying that those churches are propaganda, because they're saying if you quote "Blessed are the peacemakers," then that would be considered propaganda or anti. That therefore they can shut you down.
That would be helping the enemy.
Yeah.
During the wartime, like our conversation, if he had this conversation in public in Kiev, we would get arrested right away. We would get 15-year sentence already. Yes.
So speech is not
all journalists now. My friends are journalists.
What are they telling you?
There's no freedom at all. Zero. All journalists left Ukraine. The ones that remain are in jail. The free journalists. The ones that attempted to speak any truth are in jail, or they left Ukraine, and they want to get them, the Ukrainian government.
Yeah.
So there's no freedom of speech. There's a full dictatorship. Now, when U.S. was in war, remember, U.S. was not also a perfect democracy, right? And it's understandable, the war, but there's something else here, Dave. There's opportunity for Zelensky to steal money, do their agenda. And behind this is, just as I told you, this ideology. People are angry. So anything anti-Russian goes now is popular. And here we go. The Western money, the flow of Western money, billions of dollars. Why not? So that's a true picture what we have.
Yeah.
So if you start saying any independent view, I mean, some view is allowed. I don't want to lie, but within some Ukrainian nationalist framework. You know what I mean? Like there is a party of Poroshenko, European choice. It's considered opposition, and they criticize Zelensky. I just watched the program. However, they're not much better than Zelensky. They're the same. Okay? The true people who want to stop the war, like Viktor Medvedchuk, they're considered the traitors of Ukraine. They receive threats. They have sentences already, by the Ukrainian courts. So if I want to...
What would happen if you were a journalist and you were in Ukraine and you were saying something like, well, I'm against Russia's invasion, but I also think that the Ukrainian government is being used by foreign powers to exploit this.
That would be considered spread Russian propaganda.
Even if you include criticism of Russia.
Yes. As I said, in the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, many came with Ukrainian flags, supporting the Ukrainian army. However, it does not stop authorities to close the monastery. It will not help. It may, I think, protect somehow, in some way. You understand, right?
Yeah.
But it will not. If you start telling the truth, who Zelensky is with his gang and all that, then they will find a way to get you by any means, So, yeah, it's terrible what's going on. Yeah. It's terrible.
What about the truth of what's going on in Bakhmut? We've heard.
The truth is, every day, hundreds of soldiers die there. It's like a factory of, like you had when Germans killed a day, how many they killed? Remember the gas chambers?
Yeah.
But I'm just making an analogy that just soldiers are sent there to die. And they're holding on to that city, Bakhmut, with that fierce fighting going on for months. And just soldiers die in thousands. I don't know how many thousands died already, maybe 50,000.
The National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said that 20,000 Russian combatants have died in the battle for Bakhmut.
Yes, that's a very, as a matter of fact, the Wagner Group, Wagner Group?
Yeah.
Prigozhin said the same thing, that how many more my soldiers will die. It was a very strong statement by Prigozhin today or yesterday. And he's telling the truth that this is just a massacre. You're talking about one city, okay, and fierce city fighting going on for months. Will be for a year already. Now, is that a strategic, very strategic? Zelensky himself said, no, it's not very strategic. However, it's a sign of our, strength, symbol of our, resistance, so to speak. I mean, people here are of secondary importance. What matters is propaganda.
PR. Yeah,
the
PR.
Image,
Yeah.
the image of Zelensky as a winner, as what do you call generalissimus, right? There is such a word in English, generalissimus. Stalin called himself generalissimus. It's above general. I believe very few people, Chiang Kai-shek and Franco, called themselves generalissimus, right? So, it's
as someone who has survived the horrors of the Soviet Union and what they did to dissidents and free speech and dignity, and as someone who is also a Christian, I want you to finish this program by speaking directly right now to all the Christians listening, particularly those in the West who are not familiar with your perspective and do not know what's going on to the church in Ukraine, what's happening to the people in Ukraine, what's happening to the freedoms of Ukrainians, what's happening to the rampant corruption. And just speak to the Christians for a moment in the West, or those who are generally conservative or traditional, and just tell them what they need to know about what's going on.
Well, I lived through the Soviet time, and Soviet time was very unique. There was a real persecution of Christianity, of Orthodox Church. Any spread of Orthodox faith in the Soviet Union was persecuted severely. I'm talking about the simple conversation I had in a cafe. I was eavesdropped by a KGB man, and they watched me for about a year, kicked me out of university, and that was a terror. That was a terror. Now, we don't have such persecution, exact persecution right now. However, we have different kind of persecution, connected with, as I said, prejudice, different kind of ideology, but behind it, like the one, holy relics. It's a, for Orthodox, this is a very holy thing. They want to make a museum now. They're talking about why would you kick all the 200 monks that for 30 years prayed? They were building up the monastery, restored monastery from ashes of the Soviet time. Why would you kick them out? And I am not in Ukraine, okay? I am basing my words from what I hear from people who live there. There's no persecution as it was in the Soviet Union. However, there is different kind of persecution. And that persecution means, first of all, it's only the beginning. We don't know what's going to happen next. Okay, now it's slowed down a little bit. What they want to do is to, first of all, to forbid the church. If church is forbidden, what it means, it's illegal, right? So the priests, the bishops, basically, they're not allowed to serve. They're not allowed to have any meetings. However, they're afraid of some Western opinion to start this severe persecution. Right now, I wouldn't say the persecution is very severe. Yes, it's rampant, especially in the Western Ukraine. As I said, in the cathedral was violence. The people were beaten up. The churches were raided by gangs of nationalists. It's real bad, David. It's real. You have to see those videos, and especially with the occupying those Ukrainian Orthodox churches, the pictures of violence, pictures of it's lawlessness. Okay, it's lawlessness. So in a way, it reminds me of Soviet time, but it's not quite there. We don't have like people shot yet. We have pictures of people beaten up, people suppressed, people humiliated.
They like to tape people. I
They
saw
wanna,
I saw I saw a 12-year-old girl. They were taping her up because she stole something, and they were taping her to a tree or something to humiliate her.
Right. I'm not sure that connected with the church, that situation. However, the violence is very rampant, and basically there's no proofs they can do to anybody this. There's no law. There's lawlessness everywhere. Yes, the cases of humiliation and but we don't know what's going on in dark places, David. I've heard stories that after reoccupying the territory, some people were just beaten up for just staying in the school. Cooperation with the school that was under Russia, One guy was a teacher of he was, I believe, he was teaching gymnastics or something, and he ended up, I believe, with 15-year sentence. So you can see the severity of what's going on. What you see on the news is not really the whole picture. It's much worse, okay? And we don't know what is going to come. What is to come? What's next?
Yeah.
And the program is obvious. What's holding them up is the international opinion, United Nations, Amnesty International. They're afraid of voice, international voice, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the program is basically to destroy the church. The church either joined the schismatic church, official church, okay, found recently, okay, and blessed by Bartholomew very quickly, But this church must go away. That's the program. That's what I see. This church has to go away. So that's what it is. As a matter of fact, I think that about 10 bishops wanted to meet the president recently. And you know what? Zelensky never showed up. They were not even invited. Can you imagine the biggest Christian denomination in Ukraine? The representatives of that denomination wanted just to meet the president, who supposedly represents Ukrainian people.
Mhm.
And here's the biggest representatives of the biggest denomination, about 8 million people, wanted to talk. And he said, no, I'm busy. I don't want to talk to you. Okay. That's an attitude, David, right now.
Yeah.
And it just shows the whole evil of this government. So as I remember my Soviet past and persecution and what's going on now, a lot of things have resemblance. Let's say the Lavra was closed in the Soviet time. There was a museum. And the government said, no, this is government property. As a matter of fact, you know when it was made government property, Lavra? Do you know when, David?
When?
After Bolshevik Revolution. Under Tsar, that was church property, always, for thousands of years. Kievan Metropolia. That was property of Orthodox Church in that land, Kievan Metropolia.
Mm-hmm.
Who made this monastery a government property was Bolshevik government, who said, no, it belongs to people. All the holy relics, all the caves, all the churches. And you know what happened? They destroyed it. It was completely destroyed. Something was taken care of. I remember the government gave some money to keep up the museum. That was a museum of atheism. And now the government tells about holy relics as exhibition subjects, for exhibition,
Mm-hmm.
not as subjects of worship, of religious worship. No. So monks are getting out the seminary. They take away their books. I mean, religious books, icons, and everything belonging to the monk. They try to destroy religious life, close it up. And the only church that will be there will be a schismatic church, where there is no Christ, no grace of God, where it's only politics. As a matter of fact, this schismatic church voted to forbid their Orthodox brothers. How do you like that? Orthodox denomination, I put in brackets, right? They voted to forbid the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, the newly founded Ukrainian church, so to speak. Is that Christian church?
Forbid them from what? Going to the church with him?
No. They supported the new law that will outlaw the Ukrainian Orthodox Church.
Yeah.
They voted to support the effort of the Ukrainian government and Ukrainian parliament. However, as I said, the chairman of the parliament said, no, during the war, it's almost impossible. I mean, you have millions of people. So even those people, I think that somehow the prayers were answered and God is protecting. For now, situation is not very, very bad. It's bad. It's bad. Like in Ivano-Frankivsk region, there's no canonical church left. For the last year, all the monasteries, all the cathedrals, all the churches were taken over. Priests were beaten up. Believers were beaten up. In Lviv, same thing, Lviv, the western region, right? And they're getting now to Pochayev Lavra, the holy place I was talking about before. They want to evict monks there. So it will be the process of destroying and process of violence against the church. Probably some bishops will, as a matter of fact, they were stripped of Ukrainian citizenship. some bishops.
Wow.
And not only one, two bishops are under arrest, two bishops. Chernihiv bishops and Vladika Paul from Kiev-Pecherskaya Lavra. Okay? And if you look at the accusations, they're ridiculous. You know what they are accused of? Of inciting religious intolerance. If you see how much intolerance is towards the Orthodox Church in the media, and nobody's talking about it, nobody is charged about those incitements of hatred and prejudice. However, if you try to protect the canonical church, you incite intolerance and hatred. Mm-hmm. If you talk critically about the schismatics, you incite hatred. So that's what it is. It may sound very ridiculous. If you, let's say in America, can you imagine if you were charged with criticizing Jehovah's Witnesses, mm-hmm. or Catholic Church, mm-hmm. or Mormons, or Christian Science, okay? No, that's your right. That's your right to criticize views that you don't agree with, right? Mm-hmm. Especially when it's true, when you have a cult or a sect, totalitarian sect. In Ukraine, if you try to criticize a schismatic church, that's incitement of intolerance and hatred. No,
it sounds just like what the woke, it sounds just like what the woke globalists are doing here in America, where they're making any kind of criticism of wokeism and transgenderism and so forth, an incitement to violence.
That reminds a law that you cannot, they want to make a law in America. I think in Canada, I believe, if you criticize LGBT agenda, you are basically, it's a hate language, right? The crime of hate speech. Same in Germany, there is such a law, and in Sweden, I believe. If you criticize homosexuality, that's hate speech. We don't preach hatred towards gay people, so to speak. We preach hatred towards sin. We say sin is sin, evil is evil, unnatural is unnatural, right? So all these people try to pervert law, to pervert logic, to make logic illogical. Yep. So, yeah,
Victor, Victor, we really appreciate the things you've shared, but I think we're out of time here. We'll continue to follow this, and if you have any further updates for us from your perspective and the sources you talked to, we'd be glad to have you on again.
Yeah, that's a basic picture. I want you to understand what's going on, that right now the process, thanks God, slowed down. Church is not forbidden officially. It's persecuted, okay? However, there is a bad news and good news too. So I thought it's going to be worse. So I think God interfered, and nobody is simply arrested or shot because he is Orthodox. They just tried to do away with the church authority hierarchy, big churches for now, and the process. Process is going to continue. So we'll have to see. But what's going on is a violation of human rights. It's not acceptable from the viewpoint of Western civilization or Western democracy. It's a mockery of Western democracy. And to present this as a bulwark of democracy is a lie. That's what I wanted to say. Okay?
Well, thank you, Victor. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dave, for your time too, and God bless you.